This is Andy Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by former world champion Carl Frampton over Zoom. Carl, obviously, I've been trying to hunt you down for a while. I know you've been a busy man. And you obviously, I don't know whether to say a father once again, but obviously, you've just had a newborn welcomed into your family. So how is life and how is the little one coming along?
It's good. Life's good. She's about nearly 6 weeks old now, about five and a little bit weeks. She's a good kid. She's the last few days we've started to know her. She's been a bit more chilled. Um, no, it's great. It's we're all delighted. Um, the kids are loving it as well. My other two kids that I have, and they've been a good help, and everyone's happy, mate.
Your son isn't pressuring you to have another lad, is he?
No, yeah, he was a bit raging when we found out. We knew we were having a girl before she was born, and he didn't speak to me for 2 days. That he was having a sister rather than a brother. So I don't know. Never say never, but I feel like I'm getting because of the big gaps between the kids now. I know some people don't start their families till they're my age now, but I feel like I'm a bit long on the tooth now to be having more kids. I don't know.
Listen, I'm sure if anyone's going to convince you from the sounds of it, it'll be your son.
Yeah.
But yeah, just obviously let's get into that boxing talk and just a fight which got officially announced earlier. Somebody I know you had in camp a few years ago is Stephen Fulton. He'll be defending his titles against Inoue-Inoue come May 7th. A fantastic fight. Just get your thoughts on it, especially as somebody who's previously sparred Stephen.
Yeah, a really good fight. Stephen Fulton is a great fighter. I've done a couple of maybe three camps with him. Not sure, but I've sparred him quite a lot. Really, really like the kid. I think you look at him on social media and you have the persona, he's flash and arrogant and all, but I think that's like it's like a fake American persona almost. Like in real life, he's a lovely, lovely fella. Um, and yeah, I would love him to go and do it. It's a difficult fight. I know he is, they call him a monster, and um, he is that. He's been proven to be that so far. But going up the weights, Fulton naturally the bigger man. He has a chance. He's a unified champion. How can you say he doesn't have a chance? But he'll be the underdog going to Japan to do it. What I will say is, Fulton being an Al Haymon fighter and me being a former Al Haymon fighter, I know that Al pays his fighters very well, especially if you're a champion or like Stephen Fulton as a unified champion. So the fact that he's going as the champion to Japan to defend against a guy who's just moved up into the division, I imagine he's getting a lot of money. And that's what he deserves. So I hope he can do it. It's going to be difficult. He is his punch power might be an issue. He's not the biggest puncher in the world. He can definitely punch. But what he done, like I had the camps that I had with Stephen Fulton, I in my head I had him as a slick, nice boxer, counter puncher, typical Philly type boxer. But in the his couple of recent fights, his output has been massive. Like I didn't have him as that kind of attritional fighter, like throwing a lot, but so he can do that skillful side of it, but he can also fight and dog it out if he has to as well. Really interesting fight.
What is the approach you think he has to take if he's going to have a success against Inoue?
Oh, I don't know. I think maybe go back to the kind of the fighter that I always thought that he was, like the clever, catch and block and slip and kind of frustrate people and land little shots here and there. I think that rather than trying to wear a Nui down because you're in the firing line then and you can walk into one. He's got a good chin, Fulton. But I know his punching power seems to be a bit different than most.
Just moving away from Inoue-Fulton, as we go back a couple of weeks, or not even a couple of weeks, about a week ago now, we saw Tommy Fury defeat Jake Paul out in Saudi Arabia. I'll always remember yourself and John Fury clashing previously at Wembley for a Tyson press conference, and you back then thought that Jake would come out on top against Tommy, and he did didn't do so when they fought. Just want to get your reflections on that fight, though.
Yeah, I even in the lead up to the fight, I was kind of strongly favoring Jake Paul the whole way through until the final few days, and I still fancied him, but I didn't fancy him as strongly as I did before, and I think a lot of it was to do with the kind of just looking at the two guys. I know you can't tell too much before a fight, but Tommy seemed to have a lot more confidence, and Jake Paul just seemed to be, I don't know, maybe a little bit frightened, even not frightened, maybe that's the wrong word, but a bit more subdued than he had been. But even the day of the fight, I still said, nah, Jake should have enough here. I hold my hands up, I got that wrong, and that's what happens sometimes. But that wasn't a personal dig at Tommy Fury or anything like that. That was me just trying to genuinely, with an honest opinion, think that Jake Paul would win the fight. And I thought up until that point, he'd actually, although he hadn't fought a boxer, his opposition was probably better than Tommy's, and the former kind of UFC champs that he'd fought. And he'd fought 8 rounds where Tommy hadn't, and I'd seen Tommy live, and he seemed to kind of blow a little bit in fights. So all that was the reason why I thought that Jake Paul won the fight, but he couldn't deal with Tommy's jab. Tommy was landing a nice kind of uppercut at times when Jake Paul was falling in. And he done well. But yeah, he done well. You know, there was a clear winner in the fight, but it wasn't you listen beforehand and the boys and when John kind of confronted me, how do you think that a YouTuber is going to beat a Fury? And it was almost like they were portraying this was going to be one sided. It'll be a couple of rounds and he just got knocked out. But it wasn't. It was more competitive that, although Tommy clearly won the fight.
What do you feel you learnt about Tommy? Because moving forwards, we expect to see that rematch at some point with a rematch clause in place. Do you think that Tommy will pursue that side to the sport, facing other YouTubers and what have you? Or do you think he has an ambition to try and see how far he can go against who he would call genuine boxers?
Well, this is the thing. I don't know because, if he fights genuine boxers, and I think Jake Paul is probably, you can class him as a genuine boxer because although he's only been doing it a few years, like he's put a lot of effort into his training camps and he's got a lot of money. He can employ good coaches and S&C guys and nutritionists and everything. So I think it's a bit unfair for people just to call him a YouTuber now. He's not like the Misfits guys. I think he's a boxer. He's a novice professional. That's what he is now. But what's Tommy going to do? I don't know. I think there's a lot of money in a Jake Paul rematch. So how do you go from that, like millions and millions, to fighting another journeyman on maybe one of Tyson's undercards for 30 grand? You know what I mean? What do you do? How do you weigh it up? And I don't know. I suppose it depends what he wants to do. I imagine he's made a hell of a lot of money in that last fight. Has he made enough now that he can just forget about the mega money fights with YouTube guys for a while and go and focus on trying to win maybe an English, Commonwealth, or British title at some point down the line? But he's still a long way to go from that. He's a novice professional, which is fine. He's just starting out. I've definitely seen improvements in his last fight, so that's all you can ask for, really.
One man who's a professional boxer who got caught up in a war of words with Jake Paul is that of Carl Froch. Carl, I'm sure he was kind of kept as entertained as the rest of us around that. What have you made of their back and forths?
It was funny. Obviously, I think Jake Paul was a little bit derogatory to Carl Froch. Look, he's really clever at what he does, and when he mentions people's name, there'll be a reason behind it. And Froch will be thinking, hold on a minute, this guy's who's not very good thinks he can beat me in a fight. I could potentially go and have the easiest fight I've ever had in my life and earn maybe the most money I've ever had in my life. So I think Froch is probably sniffing around a fight. I think that's all that's happening here.
I mean, I imagine I know the answer to this, but if we ever saw that Just walk me through what you think would happen.
I mean, like I don't mind Jake Paul. Like I respect what he's trying to do, and I understand that he trains hard and all the rest of it. But that's it's no more than a 3 round fight. You know, it could be a 1 round fight. It could be maybe, you know, it's not you wouldn't see round 3. You definitely wouldn't see round 4 in that fight, and Froch would win.
Carl, just away from Mr. Froch and onto another big talking point, which has continued to have developing stories around it, and that's of Conor Benn. Carl, I'm sure you've seen the most recent developments with the WBC releasing their statement a couple of weeks ago. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what they had to say, and then since then, Conor coming out with his own statement clarifying, there was a lot of talk about eggs being a reasonable solution behind why Conor had the adverse findings, and then Connor's come out and said that he's never mentioned eggs in his 270-page report to the WBC. So just get your thoughts on how things have unfolded around Connor.
It's all really strange, isn't it? I don't really know. Like, he was almost given a pass, it seemed, from the WBC, and they concluded that eggs may have been the reason. But he is saying I never mentioned eggs. So then what's the other explanation? I don't know. You know what I mean? It was all just a bit weird. I don't think anyone's come out of this looking good, whether it be Conor Benn, whether it be the WBC, whether it be Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, or the British Border Control. I don't think anyone's come out of it looking good. But I don't know. I don't know enough about it. You know what I mean? I don't know. There was a 270-page dossier produced, and I don't know what it said. So I can't really comment on it too much. But what I can say is it's all a mess. That's what it is, and it's still one of these things that angers me. You know, as a fighter, you're in control of what goes into your body. I never took a supplement unless it had sport approved logo on it. I was afraid to take over the counter paracetamol and stuff, because what happens is a lot of the drugs, a lot of these drugs are made in the same factories and using the same conveyor belts and stuff, so they have to be batch tested to say that there's definitely, beyond reasonable doubt, there's no traces of a performance enhancing drug in this, so it's safe for an athlete to take. So I know that, you know what I mean? But the fact that eggs was the answer that we were given, that's the reason why. Too much eggs, or overconsumption of eggs, or whatever it was, the term they used. So if it isn't that, if he didn't mention it, then what is it? What is it? I don't know. No, it's all very strange.
Connor is doing an interview this evening, or is releasing rather his interview with Piers Morgan. So by the time this comes out, we may well have more information. So just for everybody's peace of mind, we both don't know whatever's going to be said in that, in case people are wondering why.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see what he says on Piers Morgan, because for weeks and weeks it was kind of, they were hinting that they've got evidence that, I've done nothing wrong here. But we still haven't seen that. No one's heard this evidence yet. So, is he going to finally prove why he is innocent tonight on Piers Morgan, or is it just going to be more of the same?
Carl, just sticking with Conor, obviously we've seen the talk of a potential Manny Pacquiao fight. Sean Gibbons has come out saying that he's continuing talks with Matchroom around that, and I've seen Conor say that he doesn't have an interest in fighting for under the British Boxing Board of Control anytime soon. And he, from Eddie's comments, he's looking at getting him an American license, and he'll either fight in America or in the UAE next. But around the potential Manny Pacquiao fight, what do you make of that?
I don't like it, if I'm being honest. I really don't like it. Look, whatever happened, whether it was done on purpose or accidental or what, the fact is there was a failed drug test here, right? So 2 of them, actually. So he's been criticised, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But so to miss out on the Eubank fight, which is a massive payday, and then the drag. It's almost like he's being rewarded with, like, he'll beat Manny Pacquiao because Manny's old as the hills now, and he's been out of the game a long while, and you could see that even in his last performances, he wasn't as good as he once was. And Conor Benn is just a bit too fresh and big and strong for him. So he beat him. I'd be confident that he would beat him. But it's almost like this happened, two failed drug tests. Now you're being rewarded with fighting a great who you'll probably beat, probably knock out. It's just not. It doesn't sit right with me. You know what I mean? I don't think you should be rewarded for what happened. That's just how I see it. But I don't, and promoters as well, dragging these guys. Like, I don't imagine it was Manny Pacquiao who said, "I'll fight Conor Benn." I imagine someone says, "Would you fight Conor Benn?" And he started to think about it. So for promoters to be trying to drag these greats out of retirement to, I think, exploit them for the benefit of their fighter, I think that's wrong.
Have you had anything like that yourself, Carl, since you retired? Have you found yourself receiving offers from any promoter to face maybe a younger up and coming guy, maybe someone who's maybe around that world level or anything yet?
No, not what has happened is Wayne McCulloch has asked me about doing one of these exhibitions that they're all doing. But that's the height of it.
That's fair enough, Carl. And just moving forwards once again, another big fight which got announced is Tank and Garcia for April. Sorry, it's one which has divided opinion. Of course, many see it as a very close fight, but a lot of people just slightly edge towards Tank. Which way do you sway?
I don't know. I think Tank is always in a fight because he can really, really punch. A bit like Deontay Wilder in that sense. Like, his power is comparable to Wilder's, although in a lower division. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, in pound for pound, but he's a much better fighter than Deontay Wilder. Like, he's very skilled, fast hands. Um, I don't know. I think one of the issues with Tank is he's a bit lazy at times and in fights. And even when he knocked out Leo Santa Cruz, although he was winning the fight, there was a few rounds that Santa Cruz had won. And I just think that if Garcia is smart and uses his fast hands and has a high enough output, I think he could win the fight on points. I'm not sure. I don't really know about it. It's a fight that I'm glad has been finally made, and I'll certainly be watching it.
Sticking with one in ball just slightly because that's at a catch weight. So one at 135, which has everybody talking, not officially announced, but Devin Haney and Vasily Lomachenko again, a great fight. Just your take?
Good fight. I love Lomachenko. I always have from the amateur days. Love everything about him, but it seems like you'll know better than me, but he doesn't fight that often anymore. I know he's had some injuries. He's older as well. That might be part of the reason why Devin Haney could beat him. I think both in their primes, I think Lomachenko wins, but I don't know if he is in his prime still. And Haney, what I will say about Haney is he's massive. I stood beside him. Got a photograph with him when me and Chris Lloyd were doing the podcast, and he was he almost laughed. I told him my next fight was at super featherweight, and he almost laughed at me because he was at lightweight, and I just looked. It was fucking like he was a monster compared to me. He's a really big guy and a quality fighter, but I think I'd love Lomachenko to do it just because of how much of a fan I am of his. But I'm putting money anywhere. I think it would be in the younger, fresher Haney.
You mentioned in the size, then we'd expect to see Devin move up to 140 at some point. And looking at that 140 division, a couple of fights which are in the works, which I'm sure you'll be keeping a close eye on with two guys who you know very well. Firstly, Josh Taylor and Teofimo-Lopez. If that one gets rubber stamped, just your take again.
It's a quality fight. It's a monster fight that the whole world will be watching. I'm not sure. I don't think Lopez has looked as good at light welter as he was the lightweight, and I think for that reason, I think Josh will win the fight. And you know, he'll not be happy with his last performance of Jack and the Catterall fight. And he want to prove to people that he's still an elite fighter, which I know he is. But he want to prove that to other people, and he's been getting a lot of criticism online and stuff. So, a fight with Lopez, beating Lopez, and then a fight with Jack, which I think that Josh would be open to. I think that could maybe, you know, get people off his back a wee bit.
Carl, how difficult of a decision do you think, especially because you know Josh personally, that he'd have found actually taking the Teofimo fight instead of waiting for the Catterall rematch to come around because of the criticisms which have gone his way?
I think it would have been difficult. Look, I feel sorry for both Josh and Jack in this whole situation. I think that the WBO have been very unfair and forcing Lopez or Taylor into a fight with Lopez, or he would have had to vacate the belt. And he's vacated enough belts. He wants to hold on to one. Like, I can understand that, rather than vacate it just to fight Jack. As long as the fight with Jack happens at some point down the line, but it looks to me anyway as if it's kind of been a conversation with Top Rank and the WBO. We'll keep this in house. They have whoever wins the fight, they'll have him, whether it's Josh or Lopez, and that's what they'll want to do. It's unfair that governing bodies have so much, or sorry, promotional outfits have so much sway on governing bodies, but that looks like to be the case here as to what's happened.
Carl, but with Jack, he has his own big fight potential on the rise, and a lot of talks of a Regis Prograis fight, which would be a fantastic one as well. If Jack gets that fight, how does he have to approach a Regis Prograis fight? Because a lot of people who I've spoken to about it still say that, obviously, if we go back to the Regis and Josh fight and feel that Regis is still, in their eyes, the number one in the division now.
Yeah, look, it's a hot division, isn't it? Prograis is a very good fighter, but he's really short. Like, talking about Devin Haney being really big for a light welterweight, I got a photograph of, say, Prograis, and he's maybe a little bit taller than me, and I'm very, very short. So he's a small light welterweight. I think Jack has enough ring savvy and IQ not to get involved in a dust up with Prograis, which he will like. Jack can control things in a southpaw stance from a distance, and suppose fight when he has to. But as long as he's clever, I would fancy Jack in that fight. But Prograis is a quality fighter, and someone that I love to watch.
Carl, I'm interested to know. I'm not saying that you've ever done it because you thought about fighting these people or what have you, but again, I've interviewed fighters in the past where they've suggested when they meet somebody else and they're maybe of a similar height or what have you, they always kind of you size them up in your mind because it's just a fighter's mentality. Is that what you do yourself when you mentioned Devin Haney being a big guy, Regis Prograis being slightly taller than you? Not saying you ever thought, oh, I'm going to fight this guy because there's obviously a significant jump in weight class for you to jump up to them, but is that what it's like for you as well?
Well, like, so for me, it's like when I stand beside someone like Devin Haney and I'm about to make a debut at super featherweight, I'm going, fuck me, this guy is one division above me. Like, am I out of my depth here against super featherweights? But he's a massive lightweight. But then when you see someone like Prograis, you're kind of like, well, he's a welterweight and he's not much bigger on me, or a light welter. So maybe that gives you, it makes you feel okay moving up the weights. I don't know. It's a weird. I've never looked at these guys and thought that one day I would fight them. Far from it. But yeah, I have this thing in my head that I I don't think that I'm as small as I am until I see a photograph. Like, when I'm speaking to someone, I'm like, yeah, we're not too much of a height difference. But then there's a photograph and there's a fucking full head on it. So I don't know. That's a weird thing that I do.
Carl, just want to stick with Jamie Moore's gym. Chantelle Cameron is hopeful of securing a fight with Katie Taylor. I'm sure you'll be rooting for her to get that one over the line. It'd be a huge fight if it does get confirmed. Uh, do you think that the timing is right now for Chantelle to take the Katie fight? Because again, suggestions over recently that Katie's maybe starting to slow down.
I think it probably is the perfect time for Chantelle. But what I will say is I seen a statement from Katie Taylor like saying, Chantelle, let's get it on. So fair play to Katie, because it looked like, I think a lot of people were guessing when Serrano got injured that this was maybe the delaying tactic so they can get Croke Park and for the big fight. But rather than waiting and getting Serrano and Croke Park a little later down the line, rather than having an easy takeover fight, she wants to fight the unified champ in the weight division above. So credit to Katie Taylor for that. I just hope it can be made. I've talked about this fight. I've like for a number of years thinking it would be a cracking fight. Two different styles. Katie has the output and I suppose a bit more of a traditional boxer and how she punches and her combination of really fast hands, big output. Chantelle is the puncher in the fight. It's really interesting one, genuinely. And I think that people have suggested that Katie, she's older, she's I think my age or maybe a year older than me. Not the freshest chicken in the world. So if there's any time it's Chantelle's a good chance, a better chance of beating her now than she ever had before. But saying that, it's going to take a very special fighter to beat Katie Taylor in Dublin. I genuinely believe that. Like, everyone will be behind her. She'll know that as well. She's a hero. Like, I mean, I don't think people get it, really, that aren't from here. I don't think they get how big a name that Katie Taylor is and how inspirational she is to the people. And it's going to take an unbelievable fighter to beat her in Dublin.
And just a couple more to touch on, Carl, before I let you go. Moving up to the heavyweight division, Joshua Franklin come April 1st. Before we touch on that fight, I just want to get your thoughts on his link up with Derrick James. Obviously, he's flowing about with different trainers, settling with Derrick now. What do you make of that move?
I think it's a good move. It was something that I was talking about for AJ for quite a while. That I always thought he should have cleared off out of the UK to train, because he's such a name. Like, he can't do anything. He can't walk down the street and go and sit in a coffee shop without being hounded and annoyed and hassled by people. I've always said that he needs to base himself for his camps anyway, away from home, and somewhere like America, and Texas where he's training. He's not, although he's a global name, a sports figure, but he can walk down the street there. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the same as when he's based at home. So I think it's a good thing. And Derrick James is a fantastic coach with some amazing fighters. And what I always say is, when fighters are performing so well in the gym, other fighters can benefit off that, and they can kind of helps them in their own movement and going forward themselves, and they can see the progression that's being made and how it's just kind of, it's a good environment to be when you've got a winning gym. You feel like you're on top of the world, and he's in one of the best stables of fighters on the planet at the minute.
Carl, with his return against Jermaine Franklin, what do you make of that? Because, everybody remembers the Dillian White fight, and a lot of people thought he maybe done enough to get the decision on the night, even though he didn't. But going into it, there's been a lot of people who think AJ will stop Jermaine Franklin. What do you make of this for his comeback after the Usyk fights?
It's not an easy comeback fight. I think that, and this is the issue with AJ, he can't really, because he's been at the top of the tree, I don't think he can give him real duds anymore. And probably a dud would be something good, so he can just get a win, get the confidence back, and then maybe fight someone like Franklin, or then maybe go on to the guys like Wilder and Usyk and Fury again. But confidence is really important, especially in the heavyweight scene. But I think he'll stop Frampton, and I just hope that Derrick James has kind of drilled it into him that he's a wrecking machine, and that's what he needs to get back to doing. Not that fancy dance, nice little step backs and looking nice. He needs to go in and be a wrecking ball. And I think he's been criticised a little bit from the Ruiz fight about being a little bit gun shy, and that might be the case, but that's all about confidence, isn't it? And once he gets his confidence back, I think that he will beat Franklin. I think he'll stop Franklin. And then I think from that point on, we're going to see an improved AJ.
Then Carl, just moving on to the other big British heavyweight in Tyson Fury. Well, say there's also Joe Joyce as well, but just on Tyson, we're waiting on the Usyk fight. Tyson's adamant he's going to fight towards the end of April. Given that's only less than 2 months away now, we're in March. So,
Yeah.
do you think we see Fury-Usyk next?
I don't know. It's dragging on a bit for me. And I suppose for everybody, everyone wants to see that fight, don't we? We want to see who the top guy in the heavyweight division. I think most people would think that it's Tyson Fury, but Usyk's the one with the majority of the belts. And it would be just nice to have an undisputed heavyweight champ. That's what we all want to see. And just the longer it drags on, the more it seems like it might not happen. I hope I'm wrong, because it'll be a fight on BT. I would love to work that fight as a BT pundit and correspondent. I would love to watch that. It's a history making fight, to say it's one I want to say I was there, I worked in that fight. To say I was there as a fan, that's a big thing. It's something you kind of talk to your grandkids about and generations to come. So it'd be a shame if it doesn't happen, but it's all just went a bit quiet, hasn't it? And I hope that it can.
Do you understand why with a fight like this it has dragged on, or do you think with how long they've had to talk and with fights you've had to deal with in the past that maybe it should have been further along now?
I understand why it's dragged on, but that doesn't necessarily mean I agree with the reasons why it's been dragged on. And I think a lot of the reasons may just be down to egos and guys wanting a little bit more, and that's it. It's a game full of massive egos, and I think that could be the reason as to why it's been delayed a bit. But look, fingers crossed it comes off. We all want to see it.
I've seen a few suggestions, Carl, of Fury-Ruiz being mentioned as well. Now, let's say if that was to be the fight which was to be made come April, you're interested in that?
I'd watch it because I watch all the big fights like that. It would be a big fight, but that's an easy fight for Fury. I think a very easy fight for Fury actually, and I still watch it, and I'd still be buzzing around an event. We all like Fury events, but it's not the same as a fight with Usyk. It wouldn't be close.
All right, Carl, we will leave that there now, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. It's been great to catch up with you. I appreciate you doing it when you've got so much going on in your personal life. So thank you for speaking to me in ID Boxing.
Thanks, Andy. All the best, man.